Hey YouTube, welcome back to another History Teacher Reacts video. Mr. Terry's. I continue my search for historical knowledge found here on YouTube. All right, today's video comes from our awesome patrons over at Patreon, and we had an interesting kind of matchup this week in Patreon, and that is a couple videos coming out of the 1940s. And this one specifically is titled Post-World War II Anti-Fascist Educational Film, Don't Be a Sucker, out of 1947. So I think just looking at the description and stuff like this comes from kind of the War Department. The government used to put out lots of informational videos that would go to the public. They'd go to public schools and stuff like that. And this one, yeah, I guess it's anti-fascist. So it's 1947, so World War II is over, and I guess they're putting out, I don't know, ideas or getting people to understand, like, how do you not maybe buy into fascism or some kind of maybe extreme ideology or something. But interesting time when the government used to make these types of videos. So I'm interested in checking this out. So this comes from a channel called The Best Film Archives. So the original video will be down below, and you can check this out. But again, just imagine if this was something that maybe like went in your classroom or something like that, because I don't think you'd see some of these things today, especially some of the stuff made by the government. But anyway, we'll check this out in just a second. If you'd like to vote in future videos, you can join Patreon. There's a link down below, as well as links to other stuff. Our Discord server, definitely going to want to join that, as well as some other fun things too. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Don't be a sucker.
Henry here got on the train with $200. He couldn't see any harm in a friendly game of cards. What if the other men were strangers? And take Joe Collins.
Okay.
He's got a nice wife at home. But he met this girl at the bar, and she looked, after the first couple of drinks.
Oh no. Whoa. So I am interested to know if who is supposed to see this video? What's the intended audience? I don't think it's kids, as I can tell already here. Just like, where would you see this if it was 1947? Would this be on like just TV or something? Is it? I don't know. Like, where do you get this sort of thing? All right, see where they're going. Uh-oh, he's gonna get in trouble. You got a wife at home. Oh! Oh! Wait, what? He's mugged? The girl's, she's just standing there? Oh, they're in on it. Don't be a sucker. I hope that they should put that between every scene. Don't be a sucker. All right, she was just using you, man. Feels bad, man.
There's a good old-fashioned word for people like us. We call them suckers. And there are other people. People who stay
So if you meet somebody at a bar or something and things go well, it's probably a con to rob you. Let's remember that, okay?
nights figuring out how to take away what they've got. There are all kinds of games. Mike here, for instance. He's got everything in him. He's young, he's healthy, got a job. And he's got plenty of food. Big factories to make things a man can use. Big cities to do the business of a big company. And people. Lots of people. Enough to work the farm and build the factories, dig the mines.
Right, okay.
Run the business.
All these things look terrible.
From different countries with different religions, different colored skins. Free people.
That wasn't very good form. Look at this kid swing. Look at this. I mean, I guess he really did. That's too high, dude. Take the ball, get a better pitch.
Free people.
He did hit it though.
They can live together and work
Safe.
together and build America together because they're free. Free to vote, to say what they please, go to their own churches.
So this is the propaganda, right? These are the total propaganda films. They had them during World War II. They had them during the Cold War. for anti-communist propaganda. Now we got anti-fascist stuff. It always just it portrays like you live in the land of the free. We got freedom of religion, and you can go and work and play and do what you want and all this stuff. But yeah, that's what these were all about.
To pick their own jobs. Yeah, Mike's got something, all right. He's got America. But
Okay,
guy,
I have a fairly international community. Is there historically videos like this from your home country if you're not an American? What do you got? What kind of government sponsored videos for civilians are out there? Link them over in Discord, or if you can in the comments. I don't know if it'll block the link, but I'd be interested to know if there's like after we watch this, are there things similar to this in your home countries?
guys who stay up nights figuring out how to take that away from him.
I happen to know the facts. Now, friends, I'm just an average American. But
Okay.
I'm an American. And some of the things I see in this country of ours make my blood boil.
All right, so they're already showing this guy. He looks like he's already unhinged, standing on the soapbox in public, and he looks half drunk, right? So if you hear these people, they're automatically crazy, right?
I see people with foreign money. I see Negroes holding jobs that belong to me and you.
Whoa.
Now I ask you, if we allow this thing to go on,
Gosh.
what's going to become of us real Americans?
I've heard this kind of talk before, but I never expected to hear it in America.
This fellow seems to know what he's talking about.
What are we real Americans going to do about it? You'll find it right here in this little
What?
pamphlet. The truth about Negroes and foreigners.
Oh, no.
The truth about the Catholic Church.
Oh, no.
Believe in that kind of talk?
I don't know, makes pretty good sense to me.
So this is supposed to be the stereotype American at this era, right? The white Protestant. Right, they're trying to expand beyond that, I guess.
And I tell you, friends, we'll never be able to call this
White
country
Anglo-Saxon
our own until
Protestant.
it's a country without.
Well, what?
Call this country our own until it's a country without.
Oh, jeez.
Without what? Yeah, without what? Without Negroes.
Whoa.
Without alien foreigners. Without Catholics. Without Freemasons.
Oh, we got the Masons.
What's wrong with the Masons? I'm a Mason.
Uh-oh.
Hey, that fellow's talking about me.
Hey.
And that makes a difference, doesn't it?
Ah, there's the point. When you can speak to the majorities, that's what they're saying. These groups don't sound so extreme when they're speaking to the majority, but when they hit that little sliver of the other parts of the population, right, then people listen up.
These are your enemies. These are the people who are trying to take over our country. Now you know them. You know what they stand for. And it's up to you and me to fight them. Fight them and destroy them before they destroy us. Thank you.
So some people are like, okay, boo. Some people are like, yes.
Before he said Masons, you were ready to agree with him.
Well, yes, but he was talking about... What about those other people?
But in this country, we have no other people. We are American people.
Oh, nice.
What about you? You aren't American, are you?
I was born in Hungary, but now I am an American citizen. And I have seen what this kind of talk can do. I saw it in Berlin.
What were you doing there?
I was a professor at the university. I heard the same words we have
At
heard today.
generic European university. So, okay, they're trying to... This is going to stir up a lot of believability. Because against 1947, you're talking about somebody that's from Eastern Europe that would have been surrounded by the radical ideologies that would have surrounded Eastern Europe, right? You had fascists in the West and communists and stuff like that. So it makes it sound very believable, you know, that this type of, like a person could say, hey, this is very familiar. It's very fresh in people's memories.
But I was a fool then. I thought Nazis were crazy people, stupid fanatics. But unfortunately, it was not so. You see, they
true.
knew that they were not strong enough to conquer a unified country. So they split Germany into small groups. They used prejudice as a practical weapon to cripple the nation. Of course, that was not easy to do. They had to work hard to do it. You see, we human beings are not born with prejudices. Always they are made for us. Made by someone who wants something. Remember that when you hear this kind of talk. Somebody is going to get something out of it. And it isn't going to be you. This is not classroom theory. I saw it happen.
So it's fairly progressive talk there for that time, right? But again, using fresh memories of the wars, where people are going to be a lot more receptive to the idea of this kind of like brainwashing and manipulation, because again, it was so fresh, and you could easily get an American convinced. At this time, it's the most receptive maybe you could be, I guess.
I saw it first in Berlin in 1932. 5 young men that I knew were standing in the crowd listening to the Nazi speaker. Eric was a Catholic. Anton, a student of mine, was a Jew. Heinrich owned a small hardware store. Karl was a farmer. And Hans was an unemployed metal worker.
To all Bohemian Germans, I say it is time you inherited the nation which rightfully belongs to you. To you alone belongs the glorious destiny of the greater Germany. The Nazi Party will provide land for the farmer, work for the worker, and profits for the small businessman.
I mean, something they're not wrong about right here, talking about it, is it wasn't just fringe extremists, of course, that joined these types of groups like the Nazis. It was a lot of regular people, right? Why it gained so much momentum. I mean, the Nazi Party became a legitimate, democratically elected party in the 1930s, going from relative obscurity and then eventually to holding the most seats in the German government. So yeah, I mean, these tactics, yeah, they can really attach to the majority.
Who is getting these things now? The Jew. The Jew who has stolen our nation and our birthright. Who makes all the money?
Look at their faces. They're like, dude, that's you. He's talking about you. Like, up to this point, he was kind of talking about everybody. He's talking about you. He's like looking for a reaction here.
Takes all our jobs. The Jew, he must be shunned. He must be ostracized. He must be eliminated.
Whoa.
And the Catholics.
Okay, wait. Were those guys supposed to be friends? Are they just random people? Okay, good. But he looked at him like he knew it, because I was wondering, are they friends? Like, is anyone going to say anything? No one's going to step up?
We don't want our great nation run by a foreign church. We Germans will know what to do with these
Okay,
people
so
in
now
the
they're
Bible.
going after the the Catholics. Like, all right, so you can see the xenophobia there. They're saying here, Jews are not Germans. Catholics are not Germans. Remember, this Germany being the heart of the Reformation, right, and creation of Protestant religions, seeing that as something other than this Aryan German, right?
Time comes, they and their faith must be destroyed. Then there are the Freemasons. In Germany, we have no place for secret societies. There may be only one
Oh, the
society,
Mason symbol, yeah.
and that is the Nazi Party. There may be no secrecy.
They're stepping
from
back.
them.
They're
You-
okay. These people are overly brainwashed immediately. They heard it, and all of a sudden, we're like, "He's a Jew. I gotta step back." Oh, Mason. They're immediately buying it.
Greater Germany.
One by one, he attacked each minority and he split them off one from the other. These men were all fellow Germans when they came here today. Now they were split into rival groups, suspicious of each other, hating each other. They were being swindled, all of them.
Yeah, but these people aren't gonna buy into it, though, right? Is that what they're saying? They're breaking them apart, but the message is supposed to be unifying of the majority, and unless they're just isolating these guys, saying these guys are minorities in Germany.
The man who was really being fooled was Hans. He was pure German, according to Nazi standards.
Right.
To him, they promised everything, and he fell for it.
Oh gosh.
That's how Hans became a Superman. They gave him a uniform and they pumped up his ego. He
Made him
wasn't
feel
just
good
a
about
fellow out
himself.
to work anymore. He was a member of the master race. Hundreds and thousands of others like him, all playing a sucker's game. They gambled with other people's liberty, and of course they lost their own. A nation of suckers. Hitler needed these people. There was lots of work to be done.
Man, the Nazi these meetings that they have were so grand. With these sites, they were just so huge, so many people coming out. If you were there, you couldn't help be like taken like overcome with the emotion and the feeling of that, of going to something like this with this huge group where you're like, identify with all these people. There's so many people here. This must represent what everybody in Germany wants, right? And you get swept up in it, and you would leave a rally like this just so full, and it's so receptive, like a sponge of everything you had heard. Everything it was told to you to make you feel better about yourself and that you deserve more and things like that. That's what you would come out with these types of rallies, right? And some people get scared when they see these kind of things in the modern day. These giant rallies as they're hooking more people in.
Hitler needed these people. There was lots of work to be done. There were trade unions to be smashed, because unions were organized.
Anti-union.
Might offer resistance. There were many political parties in Germany. These the Nazis destroyed. They were determined to smash
Social
every
Democrats,
organization where
the
people
communists,
might
getting
band
rid of the
together and
socialists.
resist them.
So they're going through, I mean, it's interesting though, because a lot of these things that they're ripping down, communists and socialists and all this stuff, is something that Americans at this time will also have been anti-communist, anti-socialist, just like the Nazis here, and taking out trade unions as the heart of these platforms and stuff like that. And United States being a Protestant nation as well, there would be a lot of similarities, I'm sure, that people would, you'd be able to find. So like, if you were watching this in 1947, what is being taught here that is different than what you probably believe? Or is that the point of this, is saying, hey, it's very easy to get duped, because what the Nazis were preaching is a common message that you're going to hear in the United States too. But again, where are they going to draw the line? Where is it going to be say, no, this is where you need to be different?
There were Jews to be beaten and killed. The Jews were not powerful, but they were a convenient excuse for all the nation's ills.
For sure.
And besides, a Nazi party member could not take over this man's store. Hundreds of Catholics were put in jail because the Catholic Church had strength and could resist the Nazi drive for power.
Interesting when you get the difference of German fascism and Italian fascism, where a lot of people criticize the Catholic Church in Italy as sort of allying with the fascist party, where they're saying here in Germany that was the opposite.
They had split the nation into 100 pieces, and then one by one, they had destroyed the pieces. Over these broken pieces, the Nazis rode into power.
So it's like a recent history lesson
nation,
here that they're
one
saying.
religion.
They're trying to do. All right, so back to the story, I guess.
These men had won their struggle for power. They now ruled all of Germany. But still they had trouble with their oldest and...
Is that they got like Goebbels and Goering and like Hitler and stuff? Is that kind of their actors? Actually a pretty good... There's a pretty good picks there for their little film here.
enemy, the truth. They found that truth does not die easily. And so they decided to abolish truth. One great source of truth is literature. So they burned books. 20 million of them. Many great men in Germany who were spokesmen for truth were jailed or driven from their country. Teachers, writers, scientists. Education was discouraged. In 5 years, college attendance dropped 53%.
I actually didn't know that. If that's a true a true number there, that the Nazi Party, huge decrease in higher education. I didn't know that. Is that... I don't know what those... I hadn't heard those stats before.
It was forbidden to listen to a British radio program or read an American newspaper. In Nazi Germany, you had to get your information from Dr. Goebbels. He knew what was best for you.
Yeah, what a character he
The
was,
church
huh?
was one force in Germany still strong enough to proclaim the truth in public. This Catholic priest was arrested the following day on charges of immorality. The Protestant church also continued to try and fight for truth. The Nazis put this man in a concentration camp.
So they're trying to say the Nazis were all just anti-religious here, and that's supposed to be something that appreciated in the United States. So that's what you look out for.
There were others who spoke for truth, and I am proud to say that educators were among them.
And what, may I ask,
Teachers like me.
is an Aryan? I don't know myself. But let us see what our present so-called authorities have to say about him. They say he is tall.
Is Goebbels tall?
Slender.
Nope.
Blue-eyed.
They're not wrong here.
And blonde.
Yeah, it's actually not wrong here. So this guy's supposed to be German, right? Telling about that, about the irony of this message of this Aryan race that the Nazi Party was talking about, where their leadership had like none of those attributes. This is something I've gotten in my classroom all the time, where we'll talk about Hitler and stuff like that, and someone will say, student, we'll say like, we're talking about these blonde hair, blue eyes, but like Hitler doesn't look anything like that. Now I'm always like, well, I guess that's the irony of it, right? But yeah, it's true. None of those guys fit the mold.
There is no Aryan race. And more important, there is no master race.
Now the whole Aryan race thing was a folklore, something in German folklore had been for centuries, right? Going back to prehistory times, basically, with this idea of this Aryan race that came out of the Indo-Eurasian area that was, according to German folklore, was very superior and now we know these people, from anthropology, we have this idea of what we think they're referring to as they scattered in different directions, yes, into Central Europe, also east, and there's of course the famous hypothesis and kind of the what people say about them going into India and then moving in there and bringing culture and their sort of race into part of India as well. So, but yeah, the interesting part of the German folklore was having these other attributes that they believed Aryans were, and that Germans somehow were a descendant of, which would be hard, especially with a genealogy that would go back that far.
There are people who may find these ideas convenient, but science cannot support them. There is no scientific proof that there's any correlation between a man's racial characteristics and his native ability.
So wait, okay, so they're in this meeting, and they're supposed to be like Nazis, and this professor who's speaking contrary to what these people believe. Is that why the Nazis are looking around? Why is this meeting existing?
In all racial groups, we find the same range of potentialities. We find idiots and geniuses.
Idiots?
We find criminals and philanthropists. We must judge each man as an individual, and not by the color of his skin, or his eyes, or by the length of his nose.
So this is what they're saying is, I guess, in the background, and I guess this is what Americans believe, right? This is what Americans are supposed to believe. Oh, he's done. You're gone, buddy.
Come in, gentlemen. It's comfortable.
You're done, buddy.
And remember that there is no master race. That is a scientific truth.
Nazis with their tiny
Anyone
ties.
is lying.
Oh, slap. Well, he's done. Bye,
And
Professor.
so for all practical purposes, truth had been abolished in Germany. A lot of my German friends wondered what had hid them. How did it happen? Where did it start? It started right here. And this was where it could have been stopped. If those people had stood together, if they had protected each other, they could have resisted the Nazi threat. Together they would have been strong. But once they allowed themselves to be...
But again, how do you do that when you speak to the majority, right? It's what the issue was. They're speaking to a majority of people, right? So what do you say? You're not gonna, if you're the majority, you're gonna stand up for the minorities. That's historically not been the case, right?
Part, they were helpless. When that first minority lost out, everybody lost out. They made the mistake of gambling with other people's freedom. Now let's see how those bets paid off. Carl the farmer was gambling on a better life for himself. What he got was extra hours of back-breaking work.
Wait, why?
As much as 100 hours a week. He was forced to stay on his land and produce what he was told to produce. Because now Hitler was preparing for war.
Okay.
Heinrich, who owned the hardware store, the bet didn't pay off either. 104,000 small businesses were closed in 2 years. And for
well, the rise of the Nazi Party, though, brought in incredible economic growth and employment. That's the one thing that people were able to... A big reason why the Nazi Party existed for so long is under their leadership, they got out of their depression, right? Which was way more devastating than the Great Depression is going to be. That's for Germany started long before. Unemployment rates went up. A lot of it was because of government works programs and things like that.
Conditions hadn't improved any. He had a job now in the munitions factory, but he worked long hours for little pay. The working conditions grew increasingly bad. And even though he didn't like the job, he wasn't permitted to leave it. And when Hitler decided the time was right, Germany went to war. Not by declaring war, but by a carefully prepared sneak attack. Once again, Hitler needed Hans to do his dirty work. Hans was an expert at brutality this time. And Hitler had decided to use Hans and his brutality against other peoples. The Czechs, the Poles, the French, the Russians. But in the crucial test of war, Hitler's race theories didn't pay off. His pure-blooded supermen were defeated by the mongrel armies he despised. By the British of El Alamein.
In the south, North Africa. Stalingrad, you gonna say it?
By the Russians at Stalingrad.
Go through the turning points of the war. The southern turning point, eastern turning point. You're gonna go D-Day, and then the western turning point. Wait, what?
Then on D-Day by American soldiers of every color and religion.
Okay.
Smashed across the Normandy beaches and drove on through to the heart of Germany. For the misguided Germans who had swallowed the Nazi bait, the Nazi game did not pay off. The continent of Europe was strewn with millions of German bodies, pure Aryan bodies. And Hans, who was going to rule the world, got only a little patch of Normandy that he could call his own.
We must never let that happen to us or to our country. We must never let ourselves be divided by race or color or religion, because in this country we all belong to minority groups. I was born in Hungary. You are a Mason. These are minorities. And then you belong to other minority groups too. You are a farmer. You have blues. You go to the Methodist Church. Your right to belong to these minorities is a precious thing. You have a right to be what you are and say what...
I'm still skeptical. That crazy man up on the platform still saying some good things.
You think, because here we have personal freedom, we have liberty. And these are not just fancy words. This is a practical and priceless way of living. But we must work at it. We must guard everyone's liberty, or we can lose our own.
Oh, he's
if
convinced.
we allow any minority to lose its freedom by persecution or by prejudice, we are threatening our own freedom. And this is not simply an idea. This is good, hard common sense. You see, here in America is not a question whether we tolerate minorities. America is minorities. And that means you and me.
Interesting.
So let's not be suckers. We must not allow the freedom or dignity of any man to be threatened by any act or word. Let's be selfish about it. Let's forget about we and they. Let's think about us.
All right, I think we got plenty to talk about. Let's do it. All right, I was kind of expecting more cringy moments because the dude there that's narrating it, that was a pretty progressive message for 1947. Now, famously, right, people talk about how this era, right, had been like this before the war and is going to be like this through the 40s into the 50s, and then really start to get addressed in the American Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s, right? Where the things that he's saying, again, would be quite progressive to probably a lot of Americans at this time that still held, again, a lot of the prejudices. And, you know, the world wars and the wars themselves definitely drove prejudices. Now, one thing we've seen, I talked to my kids about this in class. Something we often find is after the big global events like this, usually find a civil rights movement of some kind that comes right after. Because war forces countries to, again, put their, if you want to call it minorities or whatever, together, right? Where this is a time, I mean, it's 40s here. This is the era of segregation still for the United States. Like, segregation for all of these groups that they're just talking about, and especially with racial groups, is going to continue on for another 20 years, right? In a lot of these, depending on where you are in the country, right? It took a long time for that to happen. This was, again, very forward message for a country that didn't fully accept this, or for at least have to get forced into accepting it for, again, a lot time, many more years, again, up to 20 years or something, and at least of some more of the institutionalized segregation, right? And so yeah, it's kind of an interesting forward message. Now, what it didn't do though necessarily was really, like, I was expecting when it said "Don't be sucker," like things to look out for. It didn't really do a lot of that. This was mostly a video that was the history of Nazism, right? And again, they were speaking to the majority, right? People were speaking to the majority. That's usually what politicians do, right? Politicians, they speak to majorities. They try to speak as many people as possible because you need votes. And the Nazi Party did that. Again, that's why they were elected into party after party, or their party was an election all throughout the 1930s. And that's going to happen in the United States as well at this time too, where people are going to vote along some of those lines. And so did it really speak to anti-fascism? Because again, a lot of the things that they're saying that the Nazis were anti were things that were also common in again, the United States, where you have a country that is mostly Protestant, okay, kind of white Anglo-Saxon there, and historically has had these issues with other types of ethnic groups, right? And I don't know. I mean, what did you guys think of this? Does this seem like a very cringe, outdated thing? Like this film, is it more of a propaganda? Is it, again, fairly progressive for its time? Was it cringe in that way? It kind of interesting. I've seen some of these types of movies that are way more, or films that are way more cringe than this. That you're looking at, and you're just like, oh gosh, that's just so not true, or just like not. I don't know. You know what I mean? But anyway, what are your thoughts on this? So, again, these types of films, who were they meant for? Where would they be seen? Because, again, the government would put out this kind of stuff and try to get it to the public in one way or another. They, of course, made a lot of videos for kids and things like that. One of the other videos that was up for voting this week is getting into some of the animated films, like some of the stuff that Disney did, where they were kind of getting involved in these kind of political messages and highlighting fascism and stuff like that, and as a way to, I guess, maybe you could see it as it's another way, but it's the government in a way, or whoever, people creating these films are like, this one might be made for more for an adult, where then they use the popularity of Disney in the 30s and 40s towards the kids to try to create this message here. Anyways, what did you think of this? Kind of rambling now, but anyway, if you like this type of video, or you want to see some of these older things put out by governments or something like that, I'd definitely be willing to check more of them out. One way you can get videos to be seen by me a lot better is to join our Discord server. It'll be much easier to be tracked down and seen by me in our Discord server under the video suggestions channel, rather than just the YouTube comments. YouTube comments can get really flooded. But that's one way that you could do that. But again, either way, let me know what your thoughts are below of these types of films. And why don't you think we see some of this stuff more by governments now? You don't see this type of content being created nearly as much as it used to. Do you think it's just, I don't know, sign of the times? Is it because there's so many more media outlets? I don't know. Maybe is it more of a general belief the government shouldn't do these types of things? But anyway, what do you think? All right. Anyway, link is down below if you want to check this out again. I'm sure if you click on it, that channel has other types of videos like this. If you want to see some of those, and maybe you want to find one that you think I might like to see and comment on, might be a good thing to do there. All right. Anyways, we'll talk to you hopefully very soon, and we'll see you next time.